Welcome everybody back to the South Endzone. Sorry we've been away for a couple of weeks, but we're back. I'm Chad. He's Tyler. We are ready to get right into it because we have what's starting to be like the SEC season coming into focus a little bit. We're starting to see the cream rise to the top. Some of the middlers are kind of falling to the bottom where they belong, and then there's a little bit of a tussle for some spots where there still could be some things up for grabs. I think Tyler's in a much safer and more comfortable position than us LSU fans are, but nonetheless, we are going to dive into it, and we're going to still hope because it still lines up that there's every possibility ahead of LSU to appear in Atlanta and face the Bulldogs yet again for an SEC championship. So I'll start off with this game against Missouri. We're going to talk about the Ole Miss game. We did not dodge anything. Georgia didn't look great against Auburn. LSU looked terrible against Ole Miss and lost that game. We were not dodging anything. Our schedules got the best of us. We're lucky that we're here today. So it's like we got real jobs, y'all. Like, y'all want us to like be on time for this stuff. Y'all got to start like sharing this thing, getting the numbers up, and hit the subscribe button. Tell everybody to hit the subscribe button so we can start getting paid off of this. Until further notice, though, we got real jobs and they will take precedence. But nonetheless, we are not afraid to discuss our team's shortcomings and how we think they need to address those. So we'll start with what LSU did to possibly address some of what went wrong against Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago with this most recent game against Missouri. I'm going to just be straight up honest. Like I got a little text chain with my dad and one of my cousins that, every time there's an LSU game on, we're going back and forth. Baseball, basketball, football, doesn't matter. We're going at it during game time. And after we gave up our first touchdown and then Missouri went for two to start the game, just to open up the game. Like we took the opening kickoff, punted, and then they just went right down the field on us, scored, went for two, got it. I was like, yo, we're like a joke. We're like a punchline. Like they're basically like dancing around after the 2-point conversion. Like, ha ha ha, these guys can't stop anybody. Ha ha. Like that's the way it felt. So like we are a punchline to these people. Like this is crazy. How did we get this bad? Because LSU takes pride in our defense. This is crazy. So then they score again, and they score again. It's 22-7, and I'm just like, man, what in the hell is going on? They're going to get the kickoff to start the second half, and then the last 10 possessions that Missouri had in that game, LSU gave up 17 points. So, and that's a good offense. I don't know how good it really is, but like at this point, 6 weeks into the season, I feel like you have a pretty good idea of like, you can tell if somebody's actually good. Maybe they're not a top 25 offense, but maybe they're, a top 30 offense. I think they're probably a little better than that, but you did a good job of containing them and giving your offense a chance to come back and win the game. The biggest thing for me was Harold Perkins getting a pick. Then we had the strip sack fumble. Then we had the pick six to close out, although I definitely agree with Brian Kelly. Major Burns should have slid down and knelt because the game's over if he doesn't score that touchdown. But I can also see the perspective. I had one of my son's friends over here watching the game with us, and he was hyped because we covered with that pick six. so and they had the LSU Barstool account quote tweeted the Brian Kelly talking about Major Burns, how he's supposed to kneel. He's not supposed to score that. You can't do that. And the LSU Barstool was like, but coach, the cover. Like, come on, we have real needs out here, man. Like
and they say good teams win and great teams cover, right? That's what they say.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not wrong that like you ending the game right then and there versus like your defense has been Swiss cheese at times. You don't want to give them a chance to go down and get a touchdown and then kick an onside kick and get a chance to kick a long field goal or something like that because it happens. We see it every week.
Miami handing the ball off against Georgia Tech. Bro, weird shit happens, bro. Weird shit happens, dog. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like that's like you ever heard of they say that you want to play the high percentage play What is more high percentage and retaining possession than taking a knee?
Taking a knee. They call it victory formation for a reason.
Exactly.
Yes.
Anyway,
Mario Cristobal. Let me give you a little bit of advice.
That was my dig at Miami.
Yeah, anyway, that was not. Although, listen, I have to say, as a Texas A&M hater, it did not hurt my feelings whatsoever to see one of A&M's losses take an L like that.
Literally,
that was very sweet.
What's even crazier, and we'll get right back to your game, but what's even crazier is that's not evidently the first time that's happened to a Mario Cristobal coach team. Evidently, that happened when he coached at Stanford. At some point in time, where like they didn't take the knee, decided to run it. Listen, if you're the running back in that situation, or the quarterback, maybe try to check out of it. Or if you're the running back, take the handoff and run around in the back of the backfield and then fall down. If anything. Anyway, yes.
Do the Jalen Milroe where you throw the ball 80 yards in the air and 80 yards in the air.
Yeah,
because just like straight up like a silo out of bounds. And here's the crazy thing though. So I don't know if in that game, if you were watching it, the ball goes out of bounds and there's still a second left on the clock.
Yeah.
And they just let the clock run out anyway. And then called it game. A&M probably should have gotten the ball for one last play for like a Hail Mary from the Alabama, 40 or so.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. But here's the crazy part. That same thing happened, if you remember, I don't know, what was that, 8 years ago or so, where Alabama threw the ball out of bounds and the clock ran out and then Saban lobbied and he was yelling at the referees and everything. They went and put a second back on the clock. He gets the long field goal attempt. Kick 6, baby.
Oh, shit. I was going to say, that sounds like a kick 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it happens. It giveth and it taketh away.
It does indeed.
In that particular instance, it helped Alabama. Seeing that A&M's going to have to face Tennessee in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium this weekend, I'm kind of regretting rooting for Alabama to beat A&M because I just I'm not saying I was rooting for Alabama to beat A&M, but it was like, okay, if I could take one or the other, like give me Alabama, because Alabama's going to be good anyway, and I just expect them to win regardless. So it's like whatever. But just don't give A&M any hope. I don't want to hear those people. I don't want to hear them talk. Their little fruity cheers that they do on the sidelines with their really weird, cringy yell leaders and all that stuff. It's just weird. Yeah. So we don't need to encourage them. But yeah, so the Missouri game, one last thing on that. I think that I don't think it's too bold to say this because we'll get a real feel for how true this statement is this weekend when we see Washington and Oregon play each other. Mm-hmm. But I'm willing to stick my neck out before even seeing that game that I think LSU has the best offense in college football. I don't think there's a better offense in the sport right now than LSU's offense.
Like talent-wise, stats-wise, like
everything. Yeah, like everything. Like just up and down. Talent-wise, the numbers they're putting up, the scoring numbers, the Jaden Daniels passing efficiency numbers, it's just crazy. LSU's played one of the toughest schedules in football up to this point, playing Florida State on a neutral site, having to play Ole Miss and Missouri on the road, playing Arkansas, who I know Arkansas has not, they just have not been able to find a way to win some close games and they've let some games get away from them, but that's a quality opponent. And I get it. Mississippi State's not great, but they played that one on the road too. LSU's played like damn near all road games this year. They're 2 home games so far, Arkansas and Grambling. Everything else has been either on the road or a neutral site, and the neutral site was in Orlando, which is much farther.
That is Florida. That is a Florida home game.
It's more of a home game.
That's like when we play games in Atlanta.
Right.
Same thing.
So I'm I look at it and I'm like, this might be like a legit the best. So we're like I said, we're gonna see with USC going up against Notre Dame. In those elements, it's supposed to be, wet and cool, if not cold. We'll see how USC fares against Notre Dame's defense in those conditions. And then we're going to see how Oregon and Washington's defense or offenses play against each other. That has the potential to be like a shootout with Penix and Bo Nix. But before all that stuff happens, I'm just throwing it out there. I think we're watching the best offense in college football, and when the dust settles at the end of the year, I think that's likely to be proven right. But I'm willing to see what happens this weekend, and I may come back and eat some crow after this weekend. But anyway, what I saw against Missouri and and Ole Miss these last couple of weeks, it's basically like if you don't score every possession, you're going to be in trouble against LSU. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the defense has been letting teams score almost every possession. I think it was like 17 out of 20 possessions. If you go back to like the end of the Arkansas game through the first 3 possessions against Missouri, it was 17 out of 20 possessions, either a touchdown or a field goal for the opposition. That's terrible. So to only give up 17 points in the next 10 possessions against Missouri shows a step in the right direction. They brought Pete Jenkins in to help out, an old Grizzly veteran who gets it done, and hopefully he's tightening up some of the defensive line, gap control issues and pass rushing issues. So we'll see. We're going to get into previews because LSU's got Auburn coming in to Tiger Stadium this weekend. Finally, we get another home game. And we'll see how that goes. But first, I want to let you break down this past weekend's Kentucky-Georgia showdown. After Georgia didn't look too pretty a couple of weeks ago, they got right. Talk about it.
I was in attendance for this game. It was awesome, electric in Sanford Stadium at a Saturday night game. And Kentucky they were feeling like the fans were there, night before, like they were feeling confident. They were like, oh, when we win, if we win, like, and I'm like, listen, my thought was like, if we lose, I'm going to be 10 times more drunk than if we won. That's how it's like if we win. That's like, you know what I mean? Like that's how I was feeling off the rip. Because like Kentucky was confident. Like they were present in the stadium. Like they weren't super present. There's like a strip of blue. Like right, you see behind me, like right over in that area, there's like a strip of blue, like that goes all the way up the stadium. There's some Kentucky fans around me too. We were high up the 50-yard line, which was perfect. I got the OC view of this game.
Yeah, I want to hear you talk about that. So go into your experience, but then put a pin in that because I want to talk about what you saw from that perspective because it's going to be important. Go ahead.
It was great. Well, the biggest thing, hey, you know what? We actually started a game. Which wild what happens when you actually score in the first half. Put up 14 in the first quarter, 20 in the second, 34 points. Kentucky only put up 7 in that first half. The biggest factor was, can we stop Ray Davis after almost rushing for 300 yards against Florida? We did, only giving him 59 yards on 15 carries. Carson Beck is looking better. He is doing the things that we want him to do. He is, I will say this once again from that up high perspective, that receivers are breaking open 2 and 3 times. Like Brock Bowers, I saw on a route was up and cutting to the middle of the field, was wide the hell open. And we're like, why aren't you throwing it to him? Yeah. And then broke back the opposite way, was still open, and we finally threw it to him. Same way with Marcus Rosamond-Jackson, where he went up to the sideline, was wide the hell open, and then broke back to the middle and was still open. So it's like guys are breaking open multiple times. And so it's like Beck just is getting better at seeing them.
Yeah.
Earlier, as opposed to like looking at I feel like, like he's looking short and then up. Because if Kentucky's they weren't bringing too much, which they had, Kentucky's defense has some guys on that front 7. But
do you think that's coaching? Do you think that he's been coached to keep from making mistakes and just let the defense and let the rest of the talent around him win games and don't go lose it by trying to be too aggressive? And then now they're starting to open some of that stuff up for him. Or is it weird and his confidence?
Because those deep routes are there, like in the same play. You know what I mean? It was like, I feel like if that's Stetson, like, right,
they're letting it fly.
like they're running the same play, but he's looking deep and short.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
Well, that's
I
what I'm
mean?
saying. That
Yeah.
progression. If
Yeah,
he's starting his
exactly.
progression in the
Yeah.
shallow, and then
Mhm.
looking for the deep stuff,
Yeah.
it's first of all it's backwards. But I was just wondering if maybe he's been coached like, hey,
Yeah.
look, I want you to look and see, because we would rather just kind of
I
march
think
down
it's
the
nerves.
field. You think
I
it's
think it's
just his
nerves.
confidence?
I
Yeah.
think I think
Okay.
it has it I don't know because he's still almost threw for 400 yards.
Hmm.
It's almost like first year as a starter, as a junior,
Hmm.
first year as a starter at SEC football team. Like these SEC D lines get to you quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're not like you're still coming into yourself a little bit, like you might want to look, get the ball out quick before looking up the field. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And so that's no disrespect. I mean, listen, 389, 4 tutties. He did throw an interception. Luckily, it didn't come back to bite us. We were able to get back even out of the game and get Brock Vandegrift in to have a touchdown that gave us above 50 points
Hmm.
late in the game. And I think that's more of like that. Kirby does take things personally from time to time. It's like, oh, they can't do what they're supposed to. Oh, they're not. Their offense is not scoring enough, and so you know,
Wouldn't be the
what?
first time a coach heard some people say stuff about how unimpressive they are in the media, and then
And
just
then
came
do
out
something
and said,
about it.
"Okay,
And
okay,
then
say no more."
letting the backup throw a touchdown in the last couple minutes of the game when the
Hmm.
game was in hand is what it is. Rushing game. We had a lot of guys rushing the ball. Dejon Edwards, Kenneth Bowden combined for over 100 yards rushing. It definitely the attack was definitely in the air for us,
Hmm.
but it was just interesting. Like guys are just open for a long time before we're
Hmm.
seeing that, and like we're still like it's not like it didn't hurt us in that game,
Right,
but it's like you don't get that like on a TV view you follow the ball,
right.
right? So the quarterback
Well,
snaps
you can only follow the camera angle that they give you, so
exactly. So
you
it's the
can't really
quarterback
see the
dropping
rest.
back. You don't see what actually is happening
Hmm.
downfield. So that was really cool. I was happy coming off of the Auburn game where it was quite the opposite start for us. I just thought, we stopped Kentucky up front. We held Devin Leary to only 128 yards passing, and
Hmm.
dude, Brock Bowers, man, if there's going to be a non-quarterback to win the Heisman, I feel like it's got to be him, right?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was listening to a local show here in Baton Rouge this morning while I was driving out. I was driving out to do some work in Mississippi, and they were actually talking about the Heisman odds. And so
Yeah,
it's Penix and
yeah,
Caleb Williams at the
yeah.
top, and Penix actually has passed Caleb
He
Williams
has,
now.
yes,
And then you get down, so it's like those two, and then you'll get down and you'll have like Bo Nix, and then you'll have some others, and it starts getting into the 2000s real
yeah,
fast. And then I think like Jaden Daniels is like 3000,
yeah.
and then
Beckett Daniels
Brock
are
is,
around each other.
yeah, and then Brock Bowers is, I want to say he's like plus 1800 or
Yeah,
plus
somewhere.
2000, somewhere in that
Yeah,
neighborhood.
he's still in the
And
four-digit
they
numbers.
were talking about how, like, somebody, they were saying like, there's some good money, like good value bets on Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels. And then one of the other guys was like, yeah, and even Carson Beck. And the guy was like, he shut him down immediately. He's like, no. It's like, if anybody wins it from Georgia,
It's
it's going to be
100%,
Bowers.
and I agree because Brock
It
Bowers is
like
what's making
Beck
Beck
has no
look good.
chance. Beck
Yeah,
to me, Beck has zero chance,
correct,
because if he does it, he's doing it through Brock Bowers.
correct. Yeah,
And why wouldn't you give it to Bowers?
yeah. Well, Brock Bowers almost catches for 200 yards
Right.
single-handedly against Auburn, and then he's had almost 100 yards. I think he's had over 100 yards receiving every game.
Hmm.
It's like I am on the Brock Bowers Heisman train for sure. Like you do say, I'm LSU top offense in the in the country. I think Brock Bowers is one of the top offensive players in the country.
No, yeah,
Like
I think he's like,
easily.
he's in the top 20 receivers in the country. And
Yeah,
they were saying like that, I think he's like number 19 in receiving
yeah,
yards in the country,
yeah,
among all receiving, all people who have caught passes.
yeah,
And the next tight end is like 90th.
yeah. That's
So it's like, and he's the only tight end in the top 89.
yeah. I
So
just
it's
like
pretty remarkable.
if a non-quarterback wins it, I feel like it should be Brock Bowers.
Absolutely. Well,
That's
who else would it be?
yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
Travis Hunter?
Yeah, maybe Travis Hunter. I thought that Blake
And
Corum would have been a
yeah, but
guy, but
that's
he's not really doing what I thought he would.
McCarthy's doing so much more for Michigan
Yeah,
and than Corum. Like Corum was great last year,
yeah.
but he's just
Well, I
not the
think
same this year.
which I thought that like maybe he would progress.
And
Um,
Travis Hunter, like missing 3 or 4 games,
I did unfortunately. I think
I did
after
too.
that first game, I put a
I
little
put a
money
bet
on
on
it.
him.
Yeah,
I put a bet on him.
yeah. Shadeur Sanders is also a
Yeah.
quarterback pick for the.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was very happy. Which like very happy. We're so thankful. But like this is like how we should have been playing games and hadn't.
Mhm.
Like this could have, should have. I don't know if this could have been us against Auburn,
Mm.
but we shouldn't have been. Do you care if I go right into the Auburn game?
Yeah, go ahead. I
Like,
was about to say,
do you care if
do
I just
tell. Why
yeah,
should you have not been in this situation
yeah,
against Auburn?
because we were just really just I don't know if we were running some sort of experiment or like let's see how bad we can play and still win. Like how can we truly try to give the game away and still win? It was giving me shades of us against Ohio State in the playoffs. Like, can we try
Mm,
to give the game to the other team and
right.
see if they want it? When you let Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford almost run for 100 combined, no, not almost,
No, they
run
did.
for
Yeah.
160 combined yards,
Right.
like, and then it's just like, what are you doing? And that's like why you're so afraid of Ray Davis because you're letting these quarterbacks from Auburn run on you, and you're like Ray Davis just put up almost 300,
Yeah.
like, and it was
Well,
just like,
so let's talk about that though. How much of that is really, because this is the part where I'm concerned for LSU coming up this week, is as much trouble as LSU has had stopping like the Ole Miss running game a couple of weeks ago, even had some trouble with this kid from Missouri he was a D2 walk-on a few years ago. Now he's like, one of the best running backs in the SEC apparently. And he got it done against LSU. Now, granted, they have a more, dual threat attack where, Cook and Burden were just lighting up the SEC before the LSU game, and then they did it even more. That little quarterback receiver tandem at Missouri is really good. You add in a running back who can get some things done, and it makes it a little tougher to defend. Auburn being as one-dimensional as they are, but taking a defense as good as Georgia's and being able to put up that scares the
yeah,
hell out of me
it
because
was
we haven't been as good as you
it
guys on
was
defense.
yeah.
And what if they do the same thing to
You
us because
know what it
they're not
was?
throwing the ball well.
You know what it was? It was almost like I feel like it started with like scrambling on passes,
Mm,
and then it was like Auburn was like, "Oh, you want to be in our backfield? Fine, let's just run a read
fine.
option and be out the back door by the time you're here."
Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I mean? They almost were like,
Well, we don't
"We're
have that
just
problem because we
we're
can't get
just
to the
gonna fake
quarterback.
the handoff, and Peyton Thorne's gonna be out the back door
Yeah.
when you have your front 4 or 5 guys like you're in the backfield. Well, guess what? He's already 10 yards upfield. Is like,
Gotcha.
that's just kind of how it looked. And I'll say this: I hope you don't get a good drive going because Auburn's got a fake injuries.
Mm.
Is like what we allegedly seemed to be happening, where it was like there's like video of like us having a drive going. And to be fair, we didn't have many drives going until the second half.
Yeah.
But it was like you're looking at the sidelines and then literally just like falling on the ground.
Mm.
Like, I don't know how that's still allowed in college football. You burn a timeout if you do that. If you take an injury in the NFL in a certain
Yeah.
amount of time.
Ole Miss did that to us a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah,
where they had a guy on a goal line stand, like just collapse on like third and inches from the goal line, and like basically got them a whole. Now it was one of their better defensive linemen, so it was like, well, he's taking himself out of the game, but still, like they still got to sub guys in and reposition things, whereas they wouldn't have been able to do that before. And we were
yeah,
rushing to the line ready to go.
yeah.
So
I
it
feel that
it
our
happens.
our big thing was also 2 fumbles and a pick giving that to Auburn, and we were just kind of lucky that Auburn choked in the last 2 minutes of the game. Like I believe they threw a pick, or they fumbled or threw a pick. They threw a pick late, and it just like we lucked out, and like you and I have said this many 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 times, and we'll continue to say it. It's like games that you can have that happen and still win. Like it's like okay, like there's no pictures. They say that in golf, there's no picture on the scorecard, right? Like how you got there is
the number is the number.
The number is the number. A win is a win is a win, and it's the ugliest win you could possibly have. But
but it leads to a 51-13 beatdown of Kentucky next week.
We also weren't getting sacks. That was the other thing. We had I think like 3.5 sacks on the day against Auburn, as opposed to we had a couple more. A lot of tackles for loss. That's why we were in Kentucky's backfield a lot. But that's my breakdown of those two games. I am happy with how we have Vandy this weekend, so I'm not even gonna belabor that point too much. Good for them. They're here.
They got a decent passing attack.
They do.
But they're not going to have enough.
We've lost to Vandy before, so that's
I don't see that happen. What are y'all, like 31.5 point favorites in this one? I mean, I might I might take the points. Because y'all suck at covering big spreads.
We do. Kentucky. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like Kentucky was the first game we covered all year. It was a 14 point spread, I think. Yeah, it was the first game all year. It's like Kirby Smart doesn't cover unless it's apparently against LSU in the SEC championship, where he just wants to run it up for no reason. Anyway, I digress.
Thanks. You had to rub it in, didn't you? Okay, all right. Turnabout's fair play, big guy. Get ready.
I told you I didn't agree with it, but it happened anyway. So you guys got Auburn this weekend. They are beatable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope so. They're like 2-4. I hope they're beatable. But I'm scared of looking at a team that can't throw the ball well and is averaging. I think they're averaging like 125 yards passing as a team all year, and like Peyton Thorne has like 4 touchdowns on the year. Like I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm like, holy crap! Like LSU's like 5x their whole passing,
and they
offense.
Almost beat us. I'm telling you, dude. Like,
and so that's what I'm saying. Like it's wild. Like was that their big showdown? Because that's a big rivalry. Us and Auburn's a big rivalry too, and we have had like a history of like you go back and look. There are some crazy games. The earthquake game back in '87, where like we actually and that was old LSU Tiger Stadium when like we didn't have some of the expansion that they've done to it in the last 20 years. There are only 92,000 people in the stadium, and we set off the seismograph when Eddie Fuller caught the touchdown pass to tie it. So yeah, it was that was a crazy one. And then we had a game where like a barn got set on fire on Auburn's campus, and we like intercepted a 2-point conversion and ran it back for 2, one by 4. It was 17-15. They're going for 2 to tie it, and we pick it off and run it back for 2 to win 19-15. Shout out to Rayon Hill. But yeah, I mean, there's been just tons of crazy games. The Matt Flynn, Demetrius Byrd, where we had the ball with 7 seconds left, and we're trying to get in position to kick a game-winning field goal, and instead we just go for the jugular and get a touchdown pass with 1 second left. There's just been tons of crazy games. We had a big Cam Newton game that year that was crazy. We actually, until Florida State beat them in the national championship when they had Jameis Winston and Kelvin Benjamin, LSU had given Auburn their only loss that year. Beat them. We were up 21-0 at halftime. Beat them 35-21, I think.
No, we didn't beat them
in Tiger Stadium that year. Yeah. So it's a crazy rivalry, crazy matchup. Weird things happen. It's one of those that like you just throw the records out and you just see what happens because it's going to be wild. So I'm kind of scared of it, honestly, that they're going to be able to run the ball on it, and that they're even going to be able to throw the ball. I hope that that Matt House and that coaching staff, that first of all, they've coached up the defense up front to be able to do a better job of getting after the quarterback and plugging those gaps and not leaving those run lanes open. But also just like, let those DBs press up and play some man coverage.
Yeah.
We've been playing zone all year, and it's just we're getting picked apart. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. The only thing that makes me makes me fairly optimistic is that offense that I was telling you. I mean, I still, until further notice, it's the best offense in college football as far as I've seen. So this is the weekend where we'll really get to see it. And this is a weekend for LSU to prove, like, okay, either you've done enough to make your defense tolerable that you have a chance in 3 weeks when Alabama.
But I just find it interesting because, like, you and I have talked about, like, the individual talent that is on the LSU defense. Like, we've talked about it. I just think it's interesting, like, how it's progressed this season.
And
because we know you have a talented we know that you have talent.
Well, we have talent on defense, but it's the talent in the secondary is like true freshmen and
so not like freshmen, like the typical DBs you guys got going on.
Because we went through, so like LSU was still there. Like you go back and it was Derek Stingley and Grant Delpit.
Yeah.
Like it was studs who end up being first round draft picks, right? That were on that defense in 2019. Stingley was a true freshman that year.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it's the COVID year where Eli Ricks is a freshman, plays part of the year, gets hurt. Stingley ends up opting out for the rest of the year or something. And then I don't even remember what happened to Stingley in 21. Did he play? Yeah, he played, but Ricks had transferred to Alabama already. So by the time it's all said and done, Stingley is half-ass kind of played in those 2 years. Another guy transferred out, and we're left at the end of the season with nobody, just a ragtag roster that we had 39 scholarship players going into our bowl game. We had a DB playing quarterback in our bowl game, got destroyed in our bowl game.
Yeah.
And then we come into the next year, Brian Kelly comes in and he just starts plugging holes with transfers out of the portal. And it's not high level transfers. It's guys from Division II schools or, FCS schools or low level FBS schools. And one of those guys, Jarek Bernard Converse, shout out to that dude from ULL, comes in and actually plays well enough to where he's on an NFL roster now.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a bridge, but it wasn't the kind of bridge. It's not the lineage that we had before. Jamal Adams, Greedy Williams, Patrick Peter, Tre'Davious White, Derek Stingley, all those guys. It was crazy. Tyrann Mathieu, Morris Claiborne. There's just been a glut of studs coming out of that program, and now we're left with Zy Alexander, who transferred from Southeastern, which is a school we call. When I grew up, we called it Hammond High. It's it was like a high school in the city that it's in. Not really a college. It's a joke. I mean, it's a university, but it's not high level on the sports. They just got football 10, 15 years ago, something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not they're not there, but the point being, there's a lot of talent, and they should be playing better up front than they are. And I don't know, back to the conversation we were having about Carson Beck, and is it maybe the nervousness about wanting to play it safe because he's afraid to make a mistake? I feel like that's the way Matt House has been coaching this defense.
Yeah.
Is he's so afraid of what those DBs are going to give up if he doesn't help them out, that we're playing this really, really conservative, almost prevent defense type of shell on the back end that's making it to where we're not getting the pressure, and we don't have the numbers up front to be able to plug gaps in the run game and to be able to get after the passer. And so now what we end up doing is we're giving up 15 yards on 3rd and 12.
Yeah, because you're not
routinely.
trying to let them behind you.
Yeah, and then we're not making the tackle, so they're getting behind us anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like 3rd and 12, and we give up a 15-yard square in, and then the dude breaks a tackle because he's in open space with one guy to beat, and that guy doesn't tackle him well. I don't know. At some point, I'm just like, you know what? Put the young guys who have talent and speed out there and who don't run a 4.7 40, and let them just go after it. And whatever happens, happens. Trust your offense to come back and get it back if they give up a big play. But let them go make a big play instead of just guarding against the big play all the time. And that's why I call it prevent defense, because that's what it feels like. It's like we don't want to get beat deep. So instead, we're just going to let somebody march down the field in 6 plays.
In front of you. Yeah, right.
Like no, you're still giving up points.
I will say about your game this weekend, I don't think Connor realized what I said last night, but I think that the Tigers are going to win this weekend.
You're a funny guy. 2 weeks in a row, you could have gotten away with that joke.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
So
you're a funny guy.
We broke down our games. We kind of talked a little bit. Oklahoma, Texas, man. I mean, do you want to talk? Like, what are your, before we talk about the coming weekend of games?
Oklahoma, Texas? So there were a few that were interesting. I actually thought like there was a legitimate chance Arizona was going to knock off USC.
Dude, same.
I was so hyped, man. Like it was 17-0. It was 17-0. I threw down like $5 on Arizona plus 140.
Yes, they were still
they're up 17. They're up 17-0, and they were still plus money. Like, what the hell?
I was in Bar South in Athens, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm like in the bar. I'm like, what? Why? Like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, yeah, I had the same thoughts, man. The same thoughts.
And I guess the real play was to take USC minus 145 or 155.
They were still minus 200 something when they were down 17. Like that's wild.
Yeah. And then as soon as I made that bet, like that's when Arizona turned the ball over. I was like, oh yeah, there it is. Kiss of death. You're welcome, Arizona. Like, my bad.
Well, Caleb Williams, you're welcome for saving your season.
Yeah, that's right. Right. So, but yeah, Texas and Oklahoma. I didn't realize this, but apparently there was somebody who was like looking into it, doing like analytics on it and everything. They're saying basically that like Quinn Ewers like really struggles against whatever it is type of. I don't dig into Texas and Oklahoma football that much, but really struggles against the type of defensive scheme that Oklahoma runs with Brett Venables, and that the opposite is true. Dylan Gabriel actually like that their offense like meshed perfectly with what Texas was doing, and it was still close,
very close.
Like Texas should have won that game.
Sure.
If that guy like either kick the field goal or like you're in position to win the game, man. You 4 inches short, maybe.
Yeah, that is. Well, that's like the Red River Showdown, Red River Shootout, whatever you call it. Like that's Oklahoma Texas football, man.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's one of the games that has been lacking. It's like that, right? Like that's one of those like games that has been lacking a showdown like that in a long time.
No, listen, let me just tell you what we are about to witness. So I'm trying to think. So like USC Notre Dame, kinda. USC UCLA, it means a lot to them, but like the rest of the world hasn't really seen a really good UCLA USC showdown in a long time, right? Mm-hmm. After that, it's like Ohio State, Michigan. And then I don't really know what else there is.
It's about rivalries in the Big Ten.
That isn't in the SEC.
Yeah. Other than
after that, it's LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Georgia, Auburn. Now Texas A&M,
Oklahoma.
Texas, Oklahoma,
in the Iron Bowl.
and well, no, I so that was one. Yeah. I didn't mention the Iron Bowl yet. No, I didn't. I didn't even say the Iron Bowl yet. Yeah. So it's like, bro, like where. You're going to be hard pressed to find an epic rivalry in college football that isn't in the SEC and that isn't Ohio State, Michigan. There's going to be Ohio State, Michigan, and then all the SEC rivalries.
Maybe Penn State, Ohio State. That's it.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like that's not one that I remember growing up and being like, oh gosh, Penn State, Ohio State. Like no, it wasn't.
No, but you're right though. Like what really would be left other than like you said, like USC, Notre Dame, so Michigan, Ohio State, and then like even like Ole Miss, Mississippi State is like a named rivalry.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it's still I would put that more in like the Wisconsin, Minnesota type category where it's like, okay, Paul Bunyan, whatever, blah blah blah. That's cool, but nobody cares because y'all aren't ever winning the national championship. All those other ones are like national championship implications.
Yes, you're adding Oklahoma, Texas to,
and you get to reignite Texas A&M too,
which I think they've been wanting that forever to come back, and now it's going to be back.
It's been 10, 11 years, 12 years, something like that since they had that the old bonfire game.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're going to bring that one back. It's going to be interesting. What do you want to get into the upcoming schedule for?
Let's get.
Before we do that, we'll get into we'll do like the breakdown of the games that were played this past weekend. Western Michigan and Mississippi State. We'll skip over that. We already talked about that. All right, so Alabama A&M. Jimbo Fisher is a wuss. Had a chance to actually beat Alabama. 4th and 1 from the Alabama 45, and he punts. Like, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? You can't. That's not how you beat Alabama. That is not how you beat Alabama.
You take every single inch that Alabama gives.
Yep.
Because you can't. They might not ever give it to you.
They're not going to give it to you. You got to take it. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and so I thought we put the ball, pin him deep. Oh, but he kicked it into the end zone, kicked it a little bit too far. Like, yeah, dumbass. That's what happens. Like you gotta. I don't know. You got to take your shots if you're going to beat them.
Alabama doesn't give people many opportunities in a game, so you take those select few, and you have to do everything you possibly can with it.
Yeah, and then finally, Arkansas, Ole Miss, very similar. Like I thought Arkansas had a shot. I was really rooting for them to get it done.
Am I reading that right? That Vandy, Florida was a 4-point game. Am my eyes working correctly?
It was a 24-point game.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's 38-14. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, really small numbers.
I'm sorry, you can't see it as well as I can over here. Yeah, my bad.
I was like...
But yeah, that was Ole Miss and Arkansas. Like I really thought they had a chance. Now Arkansas goes to Alabama, and I
think Arkansas has a chance to cover.
Well,
20-point spread.
How much is it?
20 points.
Oh, 20. I thought you said 40. I was like, well, yeah, if it's 40. 20. 20 is attainable. I still Jalen Milroe had a good game against Texas A&M. Now A&M really struggles in the secondary, which so do we. Oh gosh, help us. At least A&M can get to the quarterback. We can't even do that. And we can't stop the run. That's why it's like we've got to tighten up this weekend. If LSU looks similar to the way they've looked the last 3 weeks on defense, it's not gonna bode well for LSU against Alabama. It's gonna be ugly. But if we can, if we can continue to tighten up and get some things fixed, get some guys healthy in the bye week, we might be all right. Excuse me. But Arkansas goes to Alabama this week. And while I do agree with you that Arkansas could cover in that game, it's in Tuscaloosa. I don't think they have any chance of winning. I will be shocked and astonished. And it will further cement my my edict that Nick Saban won't win another national championship ever if they do pull that off. Florida, South Carolina becomes really interesting because South Carolina with Spencer Rattler, it's like they came out of the gate gunning, and then they go and they take it right to you guys, and it looks like, holy crap, like this is – and then they have just like completely gone into the tank. ever since
Yeah.
then.
They got off to a rough start losing North Carolina, and then they looked decent against us, and then they really didn't really ever recover after that.
Yeah, so Florida goes to Columbia, and I don't know. I think I think I like the Gators, and I think Florida continues to impress, and it sets up for like the last few weeks. If you look at it, we've got, so you guys have them win. How late in the season is that? I have the schedule up here. Hang on just a second.
So wait, say it again. Sorry.
When you guys have Florida?
Oh,
October
Halloween
28th.
weekend. Halloween
Oh,
weekend.
so
It's always
that's 2
Halloween weekend.
weeks.
Yeah, 2
That's in
weeks.
2 weeks.
It's always Halloween weekend.
Okay. Yeah, so in 2 weeks you guys get them, and
We do.
shout out to Florida because they get us 2 weeks after that. Man, you gotta love to. It's great to be. Oh, anyway, the cheer. It's terrible. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of feel like that could set up to where if Florida takes care of business outside of the LSU Georgia games, it actually starts to become like an impressive, notch on the schedule.
Yeah.
If you can take care of Florida, because Billy Napier's got them playing much better over the last few weeks. Texas A&M goes to Tennessee. What do you think there? You think A&M can pull it off, or you think Joe Milton is going to have enough to get it done?
It's in Neyland, so that always leans Tennessee. I don't know. Listen, Jimbo should have got it done last week. So does that mean he was just saying it for this week?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Or do they become Texas 8-4 really quick?
Like we say before the show, I feel like Texas just the example of we say regression to the mean, where it's like, it doesn't matter how spectacular their wins are, they still find a manage a way to like level out to that 8-4, 7-5. What I will say about that schedule is my actual favorite game looking this weekend is Kentucky Mizzou.
Yeah, so let's
Mizzou going into Lexington as the underdogs, road dogs. I think. Listen, you stop like we Georgia. I mean, obviously, Mizzou and Georgia are not the same team, but we gave Mizzou the blueprint, which is don't let Ray Davis get going.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. That is the game plan, and have Brock Bowers. Not kidding.
Hey, look, I'll say this: they don't have Brock Bowers, but Brady Cook and the Burden kid, they're legit. Like that's a legit combo. Yeah, Cook has 1879 passing on the season. So remember, I was talking about LSU having the best offense in college football. Jaden Daniels has 1969 passing on the year. Brady Cook is right there at 1879. He's 100 yards behind Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
on the season.
Beck has
and
1886.
Huh?
Beck has 1886. I'm just
1886. Yeah, so they're right there. And then let me get down. I want to show Luther Burden's like game logs, his breakdown of. So he had, look at these games. First game, 8 for 117, then 7 for 114, 10 for 177 against Memphis, 11 for 140 against Vandy, and then 11 for 149 against LSU. He didn't have a touchdown against us, but I mean, that's still like you couldn't see that. Well, I could see it, and that's all that matters. No, but he's a legit, he's got 800 yards receiving on the year, or 793. He's right there. So like, this is a crazy little combo here. And then that Schrader kid, the running back that I was telling you about, that he was like a Division II walk-on a couple of years ago. Missouri's got a sneaky, legitimate offense, and I think they play good enough defense that they could pull this off. Lexington's a tough place to play at night. And what I think it's going to be the biggest telltale for this one is, what do you see in terms of response out of these two programs?
Yeah.
On Missouri's side, it's like, man, they had LSU on the ropes, but they couldn't get it done. So is that like we're right there, let's go get it, let's get this next one kind of motivation? Or are they kind of dealing with a hangover? still kind of replaying some of the mistakes that they made in their head. I think Kentucky's in a much better position to just kind of flush what happened last week and just get right back on the horse, because that's a flushable game against you guys. But at the same time, I think they probably had high hopes. And like you were saying, they were talking going into that game, like, when we beat you guys, blah, 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 you know, and then you get your ass handed to you. You know, do they go into this game with their tail between their legs, even though they're at home? Like, how these two teams respond is going to be really interesting. And it's, I think, going to tell the tale. But what is it? Missouri's 3-point road dogs?
2.5.
2.5. Okay.
I'm taking them.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's a good spot to pick a dog. SEC is always crazy, and I kind of tend to go with, if you just saw a team get lit up, I'm going to assume that a good offense is going to light them up again.
Yeah.
And I did not see Kentucky show me signs of being a good offense against Georgia last week. I did see Missouri show signs of being a good offense against LSU, and Kentucky just got lit up. So I look at those numbers, like I was telling you about Luther Burden. Like, he's getting it done week in, week out, over 100 yards every game this year. Matter of fact, I might actually look at that as like a little parlay piece, like just see where the numbers are for that. Like, him to get a touch and 100 yards is pretty much locked in. And then take the 2.5, maybe tease the points to get a little bit more juice on that one. But yeah, I see Missouri hanging some numbers on them. It's just a matter of whether Missouri can stop Kentucky, and can Kentucky actually get their offense back off the skids.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be one of the better SEC matchups this weekend, honestly. There's a couple good matchups. You got Washington, Oregon, USC, Notre Dame. But I think all in all, we got a decent weekend coming up. As we get into late October, early November, which is where the big boys come out to play.
That's right.
Where the real men are made. Real seasons, or when Alabama figures out how to play football.
Well, I mean, they get to fool around in the earlier part of the season, and they don't ever have to go through a gauntlet. Like I don't remember Alabama ever going through a schedule where it's like they're actually playing. Last year was pretty close to like the toughest schedule that I've seen them have to play.
Yeah.
And you see what it did to them. They lost to Kentucky. They lost to LSU. They had a couple of close calls in a couple other games. That's what happens when Alabama actually has to play. Most of the time, it's the same kind of crap that they're doing this year, where it's like, oh, how do you always get Vanderbilt? I don't understand. Like, what the hell? But let's as we get into that, we're about to wrap the show up, but let's get into what we got coming up. So you guys at Vanderbilt, then you got to bye, then it's the cocktail party, then you get Mizzou, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Like, that's not a nothing stretch of games.
Yeah, there. I know. Like, we finished it off with a little pizzazz. You know what I mean?
There's some traps there. You know,
the Lane Kiffin one is the one I'm like, You know what I mean? It's you know, because we got to be able to keep up with that offense and actually limit them, hopefully. But yeah, so we got Vandy. Then we take. I think we got our bye week is in actually a great spot.
Yeah,
if we're being honest.
Going into that gauntlet,
going into finishing up with cocktail party. Mizzou, which I'm glad we have them at home.
Two home games in a row.
I'm glad we have them at home.
Yeah,
and then we get to that. You know, that one at Neyland is like you know what I mean? Like
you're going to be dealing with what happened last year, when I think their hopes were really high.
And they were
the number one team in the country going into that game, and
we said, "Sit down."
You said, "No, we're the number one team in the country. We don't know what the hell these voters were thinking." But go sit down in the corner where you belong. Get ready to lose to Spencer Rattler, because it's coming. But yeah. So then I look at our schedule, and this Auburn game, like I said, it's a big litmus test. How does this defense? I almost feel like, they say, like, you always make your biggest improvement from week 1 to week 2. I feel like maybe the Pete Jenkins is like a new start to the season where maybe we'll get the biggest improvement from week 1 with Pete Jenkins helping out the defensive line to week 2 with Pete Jenkins. So if LSU can actually tighten things up and show out and be impressive defensively, I have a lot of hope, because then it's Army after that, and then the bye week, and then the big one in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. Then you come back home for 3 straight with Florida coming into Baton Rouge, Billy Napier coming back home, and then you have Georgia State November 18th, setting up that November 25th rematch of the debacle that happened in College Station last year, where LSU should not have even given them a chance, and we blew it and let them win. So it's setting up for a nice little home stretch, and hopefully the South Endzone will have an Atlanta SEC championship collision course yet again.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too, man.
I'm here for it.
Well, Tyler, we wish you and the Bulldogs the best at covering against Vanderbilt this weekend. I hope you can get it done. Wish us the best too. If you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, please, and share this with your family and friends. Any SEC fans you know out there, any just college football fans, let it be heard that the South Endzone is where the fun happens. And comment if you want. If you want to talk trash, if you think we're off base on something, let us know. Give us your takes and your analysis on this stuff. And as always, give us a like as well, so that we can get those numbers up. But yeah, we're gonna be here all the way through until after bowl season is over, and we look forward to seeing you guys the rest of the way. For Tyler, I am Chad. Y'all have a good weekend. Go Tigers, go Dogs. Peace, y'all.
Peace.